How We Make Movies is recorded in front of a live audience in Los Angeles and is hosted by WeMakeMovies.org. My name's Amanda Lippert, and I'll be your host for How We Make Movies. Each episode, we talk with filmmakers about their personal journeys and experiences in the indie film industry. Tonight, we'll be talking with Christine and Hanna Walker of New Glow Films, an independent feature film production company that specializes in low-budget, artist-driven films. Christine and Hanna are a mother-daughter production team based in Los Angeles with heavy ties to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Please give a warm welcome to Christine and Hanna. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies.
Thank you.
I love looking at your IMDb page.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You've got so many.
I haven't seen it for so long, so.
American Splendor is a favorite of so many in the independent film world.
Me
and
too.
You guys also did Howl with James Franco as the beatnik poet Allen Ginsberg. The Turin Horse took home the Silver Bear Award at the Berlin Film Festival. And most recently, you guys worked with Diane Keaton and Kevin Kline on Darling Companion. Congratulations on all that success.
Thank you.
I know it's been a very long journey for you. You're newer to the industry, but you've actually, paid your dues as well in your own right. We'll start with you. How did you, in Minnesota, decide that you wanted to get into independent film, and how did you make that happen?
I'll go back a little bit and say I was, when I did my undergraduate, I was studying English, and I started taking some film classes and decided that, wow, I can get grades for writing about films. And so I really enjoyed that. And so became more interested and decided to pursue an academic degree in film and got my master's, and then went to University of Iowa and took classes in film history and criticism. And
Did you think you were going to be a film critic at that point?
yeah, well, more teaching.
Okay.
More.
So you didn't want
to go
do
into
it.
academics.
You didn't want to do it, but you wanted to teach about it.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
I liked watching films, and I liked talking about them, and I, to a certain extent, liked writing about them. But I did that to a certain extent is important because I did realize that I didn't really love writing academic papers, and so I took a break. I was pregnant with my third child, and took a break, and then really kind of reevaluated my career and decided that the things that I really loved was talking about independent films, talking about the films that I had studied and was in love with. I liked watching films and deconstructing the stories, and so I got into doing film publicity for independent films. And I was well prepared to talk about films, and I worked for the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, and they showed...
Any relation?
No, I wish, trust me. And they showed experimental films and foreign films and all the films that I had studied in college, and so it was easy for me to speak to them and be excited and passionate about them. And then I started working for other independent filmmakers who would screen their film at the films at the Walker, and they said, "Well, I'm doing another film. Will you do publicity for me?" And I started working as a freelance publicist for Strand Releasing, which releases a lot of wonderful independent films. And after that, I took a job with IFP in Minneapolis and was the founding director of a feature film development fund. And
What
in my
is IFP?
Independent Feature Project.
Okay.
And they had a chapter. It's film independent. It sort of morphed into Film Independent in LA, and then there's Independent Feature Project in New York, and they're a support organization for independent filmmakers. And so it seemed to be a natural progression.
Is this organization still around today?
Absolutely. They're very vibrant, and they continue to support independent filmmakers. And we saw a need for development funds for filmmakers, and so we raised money from Blockbuster Video for 3 grants to provide to producers, directors, and writers of $25,000 where they could actually develop their projects, pay for screenwriting or casting or whatever it took to package and develop a project. And I set that program up, put together a steering committee of people from the industry, the Hollywood studio film industry, as well as the independent film industry. And in that process, I got to know a lot of people, and again, people were saying, you really are passionate about independent films. You should think about producing. And so I started thinking about that, but thought I needed to learn more. I went on and started another program with Northwest Airlines where we convinced Northwest Airlines to start putting independent films on their flights. And it was the first program of its kind. And now, of course, we see independent films on every airlines. But that, again, I put a steering committee together, and those people were also saying, look, you're meeting a lot of independent filmmakers. You're realizing how the struggles that they have in distributing their films and getting their films out there. You're creating alternatives for them. You should be producing.
Now, how did you go about putting together the steering committees? Were those contacts that you had from doing publicity or from your academic background?
A little bit from publicity, but it was largely looking at films that I loved, looking at people who were doing interesting things. Michelle Satter from the Sundance Institute, Christine Vachon, she was a young, new producer at the time, but she'd been making these amazing films. The head of production at Universal Pictures, and of course it wasn't just me personally doing it. We had a group of people who were working on it, but Bingham Ray, who passed away this last year, and he was head of October Films, and they were really an exciting distribution company. And part of it was just, who are the people I want to work with, or who are the people out in the world who are doing exciting things?
Yeah.
And we're excited about our program, and so it made it easy to call them up and say, this is what we're doing. Would you be on the steering committee? So it enabled me from Minneapolis to meet with these people and to convene with the people and be in front of them and work with them in a way. And so that kind of helped expand a sort of network for me from Minneapolis.
And that was a nonprofit organization? So you went from academia to nonprofit to eventually, finally deciding
I took the leap. Yes, that's
That's got to be really scary coming from that sector.
Yeah, and then finally, when I decided I wanted to go into producing, I learned about the Sundance. At the time, it was called the Mark Silverman Producing Fellowship, and I applied for that. Now it's called the Creative Fellowship, and they award it to 6 new producers, but at the time it was 1 person. And I applied, and that really kind of set my producing career on its course because they provided a year of mentorship support, some financial support, and I did that, and a year later I had a film that premiered at Sundance. So it was a good thing that I was very lucky. Sundance was instrumental in a big way in my career.
And Sundance is a club, too. I mean, once you get in, you know people, and, I feel like there are some directors that make their debut at Sundance, and they're at Sundance every year for the next 10 years after that.
Yeah, they're good to their alumni, and I think that's important to maintain that network of people, and it helps Sundance, and I think it also honors sort of the path that we all have to take and the struggle, and part of that struggle is just having relationships and accumulating support as you go along the way, and it's really nice to be able to go back to Sundance occasionally and know that you're part of that group.
And they know you.
Yes.
Yeah,
they do.
So after deciding to start your own production company, you went to Sundance, and after that is when you started work?
No, I produced a number. Well, I made my film, premiered at Sundance, I thought, oh, wow, I'm just going to skyrocket to the top. And then I realized, oh, my gosh, I got to sell the film. And it didn't turn out exactly as I wanted it to. And so there was the hard road of distribution and so forth. And what happens is you're done with your film. And I was even nominated for an Independent Spirit Award as a new producer. So it was really a great thing for my career. But then you have to stare the next film in the face and go, oh my gosh, I got to do this again, and nobody's just writing me a check, and the prizes aren't coming out of nowhere, and so it was just having to do it again. But I also looked at that experience, and even though it was ultimately a very successful one and one that was very instrumental in my progression as a producer, I started thinking a lot about what can I learn from this, and what do I need to further my career. And one of the things that I realized is that I need to work with people outside of Minnesota. And I need to even though I had this network and so forth, and Sundance and whatever, I wanted to I needed to sort of branch out, and I also needed some producing peers, and I wanted to learn more from producers. At the time when I was producing in Minnesota, I had no peers, and so I was making everything up as I was going along, and just hoping that I was doing the right thing. And so I said, okay, I need to work with a producer who knows more than me. And so I looked at the company in New York that had the great films, and at the time they were the best independent film company in the world, run by Ted Hope and James Seamus, and I got someone to introduce me to Ted Hope, and I hounded him for a long time, and I said, I want to work with you.
Just like that?
Yes. And he's like, okay, whatever, you live in Minnesota. I'm not working with anyone who lives in Minnesota. And I sort of hounded him for about, for a year. And meantime, I did another film and so forth, but hounded him for probably 2 years. And
when you say hounded him,
called him up.
Like stalk? You just called him up on the phone?
Well, I had someone arrange a meeting. And that's where Sundance was really helpful. And then I just said, I admire all your films. You're so fantastic. I want to work with your company. What can I do? I'll be a PA. I'll do whatever. And 2 years later, he called me up and said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I actually moved to New York. Because you said I need to move to New York, I moved to New York. I sort of sublet an apartment. I didn't completely move there. And he said, well, great. I'm going to send you a script. And it was American Splendor. And then he said to me, have you ever line produced a movie? I had produced 2 films by then. And I said, no, but I would be happy to line produce your movie, And trust me, line produce, that job is really hard. And he said, so come in, let's talk about it. In my job in my other movies, though, even though I hadn't line produced, I was very involved in the budget and managing the budget and securing deals and begging people to please work on this film for nothing and so forth. So that's what we needed for American Splendor. And so I went, I met with the directors, and he hired me, and it was... I did that film, and it was really, really hard. But that's kind of what I did throughout my career. I would do a film, realize what I needed to learn, celebrate what we had accomplished, but try to learn from my mistakes and improve on what I had, those mistakes on the next project. And I've been fortunate in that I've been able to make mistakes while being paid for it.
At any point, did you feel the pressure of walking into a position that you weren't exactly familiar with, working with big names and someone who you did admire so much? Were you nervous that you might get fired?
I don't know if I was nervous that I would get fired, probably because I was just too stupid, but I was in fear every single day. I thought I was, I mean, and American Splendor was really hard. We didn't have any money, and there were so many ambitions, and we shot in Cleveland, and the unions there suck. And by the way, just, it was the first time I'd ever done a union film. And so there were a lot of things that I learned, but I just, and maybe the advantage of living outside of the industry and not knowing what you can't do was really great for me in that situation, because I would have never, had I known what I know now, I would have never accepted that job.
Wow.
No way in hell. And so, and I'm grateful. It was the greatest experience for me. I learned so much, but it was really, really hard. And to be honest, I was not qualified to do the job. What I did bring to the table was a belief in the project, in the directors, in the script. And I did everything and anything I could to bring the resources to the table, even if we didn't have the money for them. We needed a certain camera package for the film, and I just begged, borrowed, pleaded with people and got it. Those were some of the things that I did that I probably wouldn't even know how to do anymore. But at the time, I just believed in it so much that even if I didn't know exactly how to make things happen, I figured out a way.
In that case, maybe being naive serves you.
Yes, it did serve me, and that's I would say the story of my career. Not knowing what I'm doing has served me a lot, and being underestimated has worked well for me.
And so that was through his production company.
Yeah, and I've had New Globe Films actually. By the way, throughout the course of my career, I had that company, but it wasn't really a company or a brand or anything.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been until recently. I've always had that name. I went to Minneapolis, did these number of films. I did another film called Factotum with Matt Dillon and Marissa Tomei, one of my favorite films that I've worked on. Shot it in Minnesota, and then a couple of other films with Chris Rockman. And it was more about just me as a producer. I wasn't thinking of myself as a company. Just I wanted to learn and work on these different projects and found ways to insinuate myself on them. And then I had put together a slate of 4 films and went around and tried to sell them to rich people, and I failed miserably. And they're like, "We're not going to do that. How do you make money?" And but there was one person who said, "Look, I don't want to do the slate, but I'm interested in starting a company with you. I don't really have any experience in film, but I'm a passionate person. I'm passionate about film, and so would you be willing to start a company with me?" And then we started Works, which is a finance production company, which is a great experience because we had financing and we produced films.
And your partner was doing most of the financing or gathering the funds?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's everybody's dream come true.
I was the president of the company, we were producing these films, and that is the umbrella under which Darling Companion, which we just finished, and Turin Horse and some of those other projects, that's the production company for those films.
Okay.
And so, and then about a year ago, I decided to step down as president and really focus on New Globe Films. I've stayed as a consultant. I continue to see the projects through as a producer. I'm great friends with the company, but I just wanted to focus on some of the some other projects that weren't sort of within the business plan of Works, and it just seemed like a nice time to go, and I was really proud of what we had accomplished, and now I want to do other things. And that's why we're here. We're here now, New Globe Films.
And that's where
this person next to me comes in.
So, Hanna, you were born at some point in the middle of all this.
Yes, that did happen.
What was
I
it
think
like?
we were running production out of our house, and she was born or something. Yeah.
So you were literally born into film.
Yes. You know, it's something that I've always been around, and like she was saying, you know, having a parent who is an independent film producer, that oftentimes meant, you know, literally having film in my house. And so we, you know, had production offices based out of there, and we had kickoff parties and rap parties and karaoke parties, all night crew
My
sing-alongs.
personal favorite.
And, you know, we had crew members staying with us for months at a time, and so it was something that, you know, I was born into. You know, as I grew a little bit older, that kind of turned into, you know, when my mom was really busy and she needed some help, I would do a script breakdown for her when I was 12 years old, or, you know, I would read scripts for her and provide coverage. And
You forget babysitting jobs.
yeah,
She worked on the Chris Rock movie.
That's right. When I was probably 15, that was one of my first experiences on set, was her sneaking me. It was a really busy day, and they needed somebody to help create these graphics for this White House scene, and they didn't have anybody on set to do it. And so she was sneaking me in, and, you know, there I was, 14, 15 years old, kind of creating these graphics for this Chris Rock film. And, you know, if you watch that film, you can see the little graphics that I did.
You were using After Effects?
You know, I mean, they were pretty kind of lame graphics, but, you know, it was just supposed to make it seem like, you know,
It was
White
in a
House
big
staff
office,
was using
and there were
these
computers, and we were scrambling.
Yes. You know, and it was kind of a bizarre experience, but it was certainly, you know, formative for me, because it was, you know, those experiences that made me decide that film was something that I wanted to do. You know, I realized how collaborative an effort it really is. And, you know, I had the opportunity to work on films during my summers, and, you know, that led to studying film at USC, and then, you know, working for other producers, other production companies, you know, working briefly at a studio, and working at an editorial house, and kind of, you know, working odd jobs here and there. And
Now, you left home. You're still in Minnesota at some point. You went to USC.
right,
and
and
just
that's
stayed
when
in
I left. That's
LA.
when I came to LA.
And you just stayed and took whatever jobs you could just to get more experience?
Yeah, and then actually when I was working at the editorial house, that's kind of when we started working together. She was going back and forth from Los Angeles to Minneapolis a lot, and she needed somebody to help with scheduling and, you know, reading scripts here and there, and kind of various tasks. And, you know, I offered to help, and gradually over time she decided to move her company to LA, and, you know, I was not loving my job at the editorial house. And so, you know, it kind of just seemed like a natural progression to start working full-time together. And, you know, and from our, you know, kind of my part-time position, prior to that, you know, I just started getting really invested in our projects, and, you know, it was really great working for such a great teacher, and so, but, you know, I mean, it was definitely kind of a natural next step, but it was one that I was definitely kind of eager to take. So
And you had to come to your mom and ask too. You weren't necessarily considering her for your partner when you were looking. Is that right?
Right. I mean, I mean, and all of the jobs that she had done on other films, she actually was a wardrobe supervisor. She was elevated to the wardrobe supervisor from the PA on one of my films, and so I have 3 children, and the other 2 would work on films, and none of them wanted to be supervised by me. You know, they just were like, no, we want to work for someone else.
That's
so,
going to be hard.
yeah.
My parents own a construction company in Cincinnati, and I worked for my parents for a while, and I had to leave at a certain point. It was hard.
Yeah, so when I was looking at,
No comments.
well, okay, fine, we have therapy sessions.
No, I mean, I think we, before we kind of entered into this arrangement, it's something that we talked at length about, and, we, set very clear boundaries for ourselves. And I think, for the most part so far, we've done a pretty good job at maintaining those boundaries.
You seem to like each other.
Yes, I do like you.
Yeah.
But we also worked with a business advisor. I was working with a business consultant who was helping me set up the company, and he did a retreat session with us for a day. And we talked about some of the potential problems working with family members. And I had former assistants of mine interview her, and part of it was just, it wasn't really interviewing, it was letting them know what it was like to work for me, because some people thrive working with me, I get that, and some people don't, or I don't thrive, I don't know what it is. And so there's just a certain kind of person who works better with me, and so they were talk to her about that, and when all was said and done, I have to say I was thrilled and so excited that she actually wanted me to consider her, because I was shocked that she was considering that. So,
and it seems like it's worked out so far.
Yeah, it has, I think.
Now, you said you had worked with your family as well growing up. So did that give you kind of a primer?
Yeah, my father, my stepfather, they owned a bunch of toy stores, and so when we'd work at the toy store in the summer, then I'd have to call him Marvin, not Dad, and my grandfather, not by his name, I'm trying to remember his name, Harold, and so I kind of, and I heard a lot of stories. My stepfather worked with his brothers and owned several businesses with his brothers, and so I would hear about the complications that they had. So I had a little bit of an awareness of what can happen when you work with family members. So I think I was kind of prepared.
And what about after stepping away from work, and putting more focus on New Globe films, what are some of the differences and challenges between working for someone else and working for yourself? And also, this goes for you too, working for other production companies and now going into a partnership with your mom, and being more in a leadership position where before you might have started out down on the rungs and had to work your way up.
Yes, she was.
Do you want to start?
No, why don't you?
What was the question?
Just
the difference
between working for someone else and working for yourself.
I would say, I don't know. I obviously like it much better. It's been a really kind of empowering experience for me. Especially having worked in the studio system and for other production companies, I think it's really difficult, especially for younger people, to kind of push past that assistant role.
Yeah.
And you're not given a lot of responsibility, and what you do every day is kind of always the same. And so it's been, really great now taking an active role on these various projects that we have in development, because, I get to do all kinds of things, and, running, she's still traveling back and forth between Los Angeles and Minnesota. And so I've been, for the most part, running the office here in Los Angeles. And so that's been, a really great experience. And it's allowed me to kind of develop and foster new relationships. And, one thing that really frustrated me about working for other producers and other production companies was that, they weren't able to clearly articulate the types of films that they wanted to make. And so, a lot of what I did was read scripts. And so, I was in this sea of scripts, and, I wasn't really sure what to do with them. I could judge them on their technical merits, but I couldn't tell them whether, it was right for the company or not, because I wasn't sure.
Because you didn't understand their mission.
Yeah, and I would say they didn't necessarily have one.
Oh, wow.
And so that's been really great about New Glow Films, is from the very beginning, we've been very clear about the types of films that we want to make and the types of people that we want to work with. So that's also been a really great part about working for the company.
What is your mission at New Globe Films?
We will produce every George Clooney movie. No, we have another one too, right?
I think kind of our biggest mission, has always been to give voice to underrepresented communities. I think, being women and of Hawaiian descent ourselves and being part of those underrepresented communities, that was something that was really important to us. It's where are the stories that speak to us? And so I think you can see that if you look at the films we have in development. We have a film, about a woman with a child with autism. We have a Native American film about redlining in the banking industry.
Very exciting.
Yes. We just...
Anything that's anti-bank.
Yes, really.
We optioned a book, Blue Latitudes, by Tony Horowitz, which is about Captain Cook and his travels, through the Pacific Isles. And so... I think certainly the films that we have thus far reflect that.
And these are ones that we're passionate about and want to do. And of course, there may be projects that come up that sort of fit within that mission in our minds, and that we don't necessarily develop or generate, but we might get involved in some way. I mean, when I look back, when you're starting out, as you know, you can't always decide what you're going to do. But I think it's important to decide what it is you want to learn in the next go around. And you can always learn something from every experience, even if it's not in film. And you can apply it to producing, directing, writing, whatever it is. We all know that, of course, but
it's still really great advice.
But it's true, it's true. But when I look back, I mean, I've made a lot of films about sort of like artists, struggling artists, Charles Bukowski, Allen Ginsberg, Harvey P. Carr, and I've thought to myself, I didn't really design that, but somehow I have said no to some things in my career, and somehow I gravitated to that. And I think those films are also about making films about the disenfranchised or the artist or someone who wants to say something and needs somebody to champion their voice. And
someone that's underrepresented.
Yeah, and so I think that opens it up for other kinds of films as well.
How do you go about choosing? Now you do have a choice over which films you get to choose or get to work on. How do you go about choosing which films are going to be your next projects?
If George Clooney is in it, no.
I love that answer.
Well, I mean, we first of all, and it does come down to this, if we respond to the script, and we have similar tastes. Yeah. Hanna may be more critical. I wrote a screenplay, just so you know, and it was produced. And
did she tear it apart with her notes?
No, she didn't. I didn't give it to her to give notes, thank God. But and that was a great learning experience. I realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so much nicer to writers next time I give them criticism. But so I think I'm a little more sympathetic. But that said, I think we gravitate to the very similar material. I mean, she has what the mission is, but we like some of the same things. And so it starts with the material, if we respond to the script. And then I think we look, does it fit within the mission? one of the things I learned at Works, my partner was very into branding and marketing, and those things never occurred to me. You know, I was the brand. I'm the producer, and how I conduct myself and how the films I make really speak to me. But there is something to be said for branding and marketing and kind of upholding and realizing that whatever it is you're doing out in the world does translate in some way. And so we do then say, okay, is this in keeping with our mission? Mm-hmm. And then there's...
Yeah, and then I would say the kind of the next thing that we look at certainly is, you know, who's involved with the project. Mm-hmm. You know, and that doesn't necessarily just mean, you know, what are their credits, but I think, you know, what kind of people they are. You know, I think we look at all of our projects as collaborations, and so, you know, we ask ourselves, are these people that we think we can collaborate with? You know, are they receptive to our notes? Are they, you know, open to dialogue? And so I think that's something that's also incredibly important. You know, you're going to be working with these people for a long time, and so I would give that at least equal importance.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's some people who just, here's my script, call me when you have the money and the cast, and, you know, and that's what they think producers do. Mm-hmm. And it's obviously not that easy. Well, it certainly isn't for us. And so it and sometimes getting to the end means, well, you know, no one's liking the script, so maybe we have to look at it and change it.
Yeah. And
those are hard conversations that you have to have with people, or maybe you have to look at other cast, or, you know, and it's just, we just want to flash forward and not have to go through the pain of that process, and just say, are you open to that? These are the things that might happen in the course of this marriage.
So you say that from the very beginning, when you take a writer on, like the script might completely change, you might completely redevelop it. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, not completely, because we all fell in love with it for a certain reason, but we start and say, these are our notes, this is what we, you know, this is what we think could be improved. And if you don't really agree with that, that's fine. You know, we shouldn't work together because we all want to be on the same page. But so that's really important in the first part of the process, getting on the same page even when you get, you know, outside the gate. But then there is the development process, there's the packaging process, there's the financing process. And you want to do Kickstarter, and you say to the director, hey, can you know, we want to add a role, you know, we want to give somebody a line. Are you willing to cast somebody who paid $1,000 for the film, even though they might not creatively fit your vision? Those are conversations you have to have. And so I've learned over the years that I just want to have that conversation up front. Right, are you willing to have that conversation? And I totally respect you if you're not. Then that's, you know, then we shouldn't work together, because I want to be able to have that conversation. But I don't want you to do something that you feel uncomfortable about.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
in a sea of scripts, I know you do a lot of the script writing, in a sea of scripts that you get submitted every day, how does a writer distinguish themselves amongst all the other writers? And what's some of the biggest turnoffs when reading new scripts?
Well, I would say, you know, as far as first impressions go, this might sound kind of trivial, but kind of a proper introductory email helps a lot. A lot of times we receive scripts from people that we don't know, and we always appreciate it when a writer takes the time to properly introduce themselves and the project. You know, sometimes we'll just receive scripts, they're unsolicited, and it's kind of like, here's my script, and, you know, we don't know what they want us to do with it, we don't know who they are, we don't know where it is. You know, as far as
attach it.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, here.
Hi.
Read
Please
this.
Consider my script.
So you mean you don't know what stage it's at?
Yeah, you know, are there other producers attached already? Have they gone out to cast? Do they have any financing? So it's always really nice to kind of have that all up front, since most submissions occur through email nowadays. As far as turnoffs go, I would say my biggest turnoff is when we received unfinished work. You know, a lot of times we will get drafts of scripts, and especially when we receive drafts from writers we've never worked with before, it's really difficult to evaluate the project and the writer because it's not finished. You know, I receive a lot of scripts in Microsoft Word documents, you know, instead of Final Draft. A lot of scripts that have clearly not been read over with tons of spelling errors, tons of grammatical errors, you know, and a few is fine, but tons of structural errors. And, you know, when you're submitting a script, you're asking us to take our time to read your script and evaluate it and get back to you, which, you know, we're happy to do, and that's, you know, part of our job. But I think as a writer, it's your responsibility to also put in your time and, you know, make sure it's ready to be submitted. And so,
yeah, I just
don't send
the
Word
letter
documents.
saying I'm sending you this version, but I'm working on the new draft. It's like,
Just
you know,
wait. Just wait.
when I say send the new draft, but really, I'm not going to read 2 drafts. And if you're sending, and I'm pretty, again, sympathetic, having been a writer myself, I'm pretty sympathetic. And I will say, look, just send me the new draft, because you should send the work that you're most happy with, and that will be great for all of us. And I will try to respond and just say wait, but you know, I don't want to. We don't have the time. Look at, we're us and some interns who do reading, whatever. We don't have the time to read several drafts.
Yeah.
And it's shocking how many people have that expectation.
Yeah.
And there are times when actually, and this is what I want to say too, I've actually been willing to provide notes to people.
It's really above and beyond you.
It is above and beyond because I like notes myself. But and I've had someone write back to me saying, "Look, save your notes. I just need you to get me an agent, and then I'll get the notes from the agent. Seriously,
Wow.
I'll get the notes from the agent, then I'll make the changes." And I was actually willing to help, you know, because he was a friend of a friend. And
Wow.
it's like, okay.
All right. Well, we're going to take some questions from the audience. It's Chris, my producer. Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. So this one comes from a Twitter follower at dev_Bajaj. As producers, how much control do you have or care to have over the finished product creativity-wise?
You know, the thing is, you can't direct a movie or write a movie from the producer's chair, right? And I've seen people try to do it, and it's impossible. I want the director to direct his or her movie, and I want to support and facilitate that vision. And that's been the story of my career. My films attest to that. That said, for New Globe Films, one of the things that we've really had long conversations about and talked about, that is that we've finally gotten to the place where we actually want to make films that audiences want to see. And right?
Imagine that.
And on our business card it says audience matters. And shockingly, that wasn't my priority in the early part of my career. My priority, having come from academics, having come from the nonprofit world, was facilitating this one person's vision, right? Now it's about, I want the audience to watch the films and enjoy the experience. And it doesn't mean they have to, you know, watch some crazy comedy.
Yeah.
But the others are not the other. Life of Others.
Lives.
Lives of Others.
Lives of Others.
I walked out of that movie and I said to myself, I am so glad I saw that film. And that is what I want people to say when they walk out of our films. I want an audience to say, I'm glad I saw that. So, to answer, maybe a crazy way of answering that question, but so for me, we talk to our directors and our writers up front about, this is our mission. It's not just about facilitating your vision so that you can watch the film by yourself.
With your friends.
With your friends. It's about facilitating your vision, and hopefully we've all agreed that it's a vision that audiences want to see. Mm-hmm. But if some adjustments need to be made in the process of development and in editing and whatever, then we are going to work hard to help you understand what those changes might be through testing. Not all films need to be tested, but I'm a fan of testing. I'm a fan of having people watch your film and giving feedback.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't want to control the creative vision of the film, but I want to collaborate, and I want the directors to be open to that collaboration. Nobody owns the creative vision of the film. It's a group of people led by a director.
Right. And at this point in your career, you work with people that are professional enough that you don't have to guide them by the hand. It's
Absolutely
probably
not.
like,
I'd love them to come out and say, here's my film, it's a film that we loved in the beginning. We all envisioned it being the same film together, and they show up and it's a film and it's an Academy Award winner and a box office success. I would love that, and I'm developing all the other projects. But it doesn't always work out that way. You do need to kind of sort of try things out, and as a producer, I want to be involved in that process.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I hope that based on my experience, directors and other creative collaborators will want me to be there.
Here's a question from @Cockmer. Have you ever started a film under budget?
Started a film under budget?
Yeah, gone into production without the full budget.
No. Yes, I have many times. Yes. Sometimes you have to say, we're making the film. Like when we're going to film now, we have about half the budget, or 2/3 of the budget, and you need to be able to say, it's happening. Because there are a lot of people who say, come back to us when you're going to make the film.
Right.
And so we get to a point where I know I can make the film and I won't disappoint people. And at that point, and I'm pretty good at judging what that point is based on all of the conversations I've had with other investors and so forth. And then we go ahead and just make it.
Is it a lot of it based off of gut and experience?
And will. Sure will. I'm not going to disappoint these people, and if I have to, get everything for free, I will, to finish it.
Which you've done.
I have done.
Here's another one from another Twitter follower. We got a lot of Twitter people in the audience today. At Chris Gregg, Fred asks, you mentioned not just raising money, then getting back to writers. In addition to that and reading scripts, can you describe a typical day or week or month? So what's a typical day like for you guys at New Globe Films?
I call her and say, what's happening today?
I think because a lot of times we're not in the same state, a typical day usually starts with us just kind of regrouping. We'll check our emails, we'll check our voicemails, we'll go over our script submissions, and we'll go over all the different projects that we have in development and kind of talk about what needs to get done that day on each of those projects.
Do you guys have an organizational tool, like an online website that you use, or something that keeps track of every little detail? Like, how do you keep track of so many projects at the same time?
We make a lot of lists.
Paper people.
I am the queen of lists and organizational tools, and I've done all the research and I've used them all and so forth. But iCalendar or Google Calendar is ultimately what works for us.
And you can share it, and
we
it's
can
free.
share it. we use, we share documents amongst our filmmakers.
That's how I shared the script with you for
yeah,
tonight.
it's just very simple, and there are some tools, but I have one where I have sort of a development. I have lists: development, pre-production, production lists, checklists, delivery lists, and we work off of those lists. Every film has one, and we just line them up and say, and we set deadlines, and of course it's like, oh my gosh, we didn't do that last week, so then we move it to the next week. But it's lists, it's calendars is really what works for us.
All right. Eric Altman at Eric Dahman, also on Twitter, asks for Hanna. For those not fortunate enough to grow up in a studio, do you have advice to mirror your experiences in the beginning? Like, what was your experience like just out of film school?
I would say, while I was in college, I was adamant about making sure I got an internship at a production company, and I was strategic about which company I wanted to intern at. I knew that I wanted to stay in independent film, so I made sure I found an independent film company. I guess it's kind of hard to give advice about something that I didn't.
You did start out though. How many years were you on your own before you joined up with Mom?
Not 3-4 years, and so and I moved around a lot, and if I needed a job, I literally would spend every single day sending out 50, 60, 70 resumes to anybody who would take them.
Wow.
And so I just think that you have to be really diligent about, applying to as many jobs as possible, about kind of maintaining the relationships you make in college. Those are going to end up being your peers, so I think that, it's important to maintain those relationships. I think, I didn't have to do this a whole lot myself, but, I know a lot of people I know, what they did is they went and just found the producers, who they wanted to work for and approached them directly and, sent them flowers.
Sounds like what you did.
So I think there's so many different ways you can go about it, but I think, kind of internships are a good place to start.
Besides sending flowers, or I know you talked before about just finding someone who knew them that would set you up a general meeting, what has been some tactics that both of you have used to create and maintain relationships throughout your careers? Maybe in an advice type of format, because I know some people just aren't people.
No, I actually had a meeting with some producing colleagues of mine today, and we were talking about that, and they were like, how do you meet rich people? It's like, I don't know.
Good question.
Right. But I think, I think it's important, like with fundraising, and especially first-time directors, right? Usually they'll get their money. I always say this to the first-time directors. We're going to find our financing. Write down all the people you know. Financing is going to come from them or somebody they know. And that's how it works with jobs, everything, in all industries. And so, I went to Minnesota, having been in academics, going to school for a long time, longer than I should have. And then I moved to Minnesota, did not know one person, and decided, hey, I want to do something in film. I did 5 internships.
Wow.
And I was very well educated, and I'm making faxes for this 21-year-old, and I have 3 children, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what am I doing? But and one of those internships I got because my mother-in-law knew the film commissioner in Utah. I called her and asked her would she set up a meeting for the film commissioner in Minnesota. And so use the people you know. A lot of people think, I need to know somebody else than the people I know.
Right.
Use the people who are familiar with what you do. You don't necessarily have to be a people person. You just have to be good at what you do at that time in your life.
When you set up the meeting, how do you ask for a meeting? Do you say, I just want to take you to lunch and ask you some questions because I'm interested in doing what you do?
Yeah, that's a good question because I get a lot of, I want a job from you and I need to find out what jobs you have available. Informational interviews, and I still do this now. I'll call up somebody and I will say, I just want to talk to you for 15 minutes. Would you be willing to meet with me and ask you questions? I'm looking for financing, and I would like to pitch this project to you for over 15 minutes, or just an informational interview. I want to find out what you do, what you're interested in, so that maybe I can think about something that we could work on together. I mean, it's that simple, and you'd be surprised. But you have your friends read the letter first. Seriously.
So you don't sound creepy?
Yeah, so and just make it professional. And I am truly shocked over the course of my career how many people respond to just a simple request for help.
Yeah.
And mean it. Don't go into the meeting and say, I want to learn about your career, and then and then turn around and ask them for something else.
Yeah.
If you're going to ask for a job, then just say, I want to meet with you, and then maybe they'll say, well, go meet with that person.
Right.
Know what you're asking for.
And what about staying in touch? You said with the one producer, you hounded him for 2 years. How do you stay in touch with someone without being creepy? That's one of the, I think, questions a lot of actors have, too, in this industry. How do I not be a stalker? But I've got no real legitimate reason to know this person other than the fact that I want to.
Today we have technology, we have ways to put together our reels, and there's this one guy, I can't remember his name, he's a composer, and I usually don't want to look at composer reels until we're at that point or listen to them, but because it's all so much dependent on who the director wants to work with and the content of the film and whatever. There's this guy who has been emailing me for 5 years. And every 6 months, he sends me, here's the update of my reel, or just so you know, this is what I've been doing. And I'm actually really appreciating that process if you don't know that person. But if you know that person, then just sending, this is what I'm up to.
Yeah.
And just wanted to keep you in the loop.
Yeah.
And that's hounding that person. It was, this is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm doing now. Somewhere along the line, I'm going to have done enough things. I'm proving to that person that I'm serious. Because there are a lot of people who want to be in this industry who come to you and go, I want to do this and blah, blah, blah. And they've done nothing. And then they weed themselves out because they will do, after a year, you look around and that person has chosen something else, which is fine. But there are those people come back year after year, and I am one of them. I'm one of those people whose people will see at Sundance and go, seriously, you're still? I thought you were the last person I would think would be here or who would still be making
Stuck
films.
with it.
I get that all the time.
Wow.
I can't believe you're making film. I would never have thought
And you're
that.
still in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Well, we've got to wrap up. Do you want to talk about how people can find out about your latest film, Darling Companion? Or when does that?
Well, you can go to Sony. It's in theaters now, independent film theaters, and it's directed by Lawrence Kasdan, and Sony Pictures Classics has a lot about it on its website, and then we have information in our New Globe Films website.
And that's newglobefilms.com?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so check that out, newglobefilms.com. Go to the theaters, see Darling Companion starring Diane Keaton and Kevin Kline. And thank you, ladies, so much for gracing our stage and sharing all of your information and your personal stories. We really appreciate it. That was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.